Alright, it's time to talk about Evergreen State College again. I want to touch upon this again because Evergreen just keeps getting worse and worse. So for those who haven't seen my first video on Evergreen, you should go back and watch that first. Now, as some of you probably know by now who've been keeping up with the Evergreen State bullshit, know that a posse of students wielding baseball bats were seen roaming around the campus threatening students and faculty.
Ooh, we're getting feisty today.
Fucking leave!
Fred Durst.
What do you have against Fred Durst? He did nothing to you. Okay, I'm gonna try it over here. Guys.
Now, these students have been led by a transgendered student named Jamil. Here's a clip of Jamil conversing with the students.
They stay in that room. If they aren't in that room, then we did something wrong. So you need to watch that door, watch all the doors, watch the windows. You need to keep eyes on them. And somebody needs to go in that room real quick to make sure that there's no way in that room for them to leave. That's the number one priority until we get our demands first.
I know a lot of you probably know this by now, this is just kind of a recap. Also, last month, Jamil and their posse of misfits and other students have caused over $10,000 worth of property damage to the campus. Yeah, remember to keep that in mind. Also, do you guys remember when Evergreen was shut down at one point due to a threat that was called in? Well, according to various news articles, the man who made the call was caught. A 53-year-old Robert W. Caracas was arrested and charged. Now, wanna guess where he was when he made the call? In fucking New Jersey. He was in New Jersey and heard about the controversy surrounding Evergreen and decided to make a threatening call to them. Right now, a safety plan is supposed to be addressed to the students, says the Olympian. The Evergreen State College in Olympia is no stranger to student protest, but some students went too far when they interrupted faculty member Brett Weinstein's class and a day later pushed furniture against doorways during a takeover of the library building in May. Evergreen President George Bridges told the Olympian's editorial board this week, "Blocking doors, that's a criminal act in the state of Washington to prevent people from entering or exiting. You can't do that in a public building," he says. Wow, just the number of violations and laws being broke from these people is astounding. Good thing they'll just get a slap on the wrist by the end of this. Bridges is scheduled to present the college's plan for moving forward and assuring student safety during a special meeting with the college's Board of Trustees on Wednesday. Bridges said the college's plans include Protesting 101. Bridges says he doesn't believe students knew that they were breaking the law or the college's code of conduct during their demonstrations. We are sending this week a letter to every student at Evergreen articulating and outlining the conduct code, the violations that have been committed, and the fact that some of them involved criminal actions, Bridges said. They need to be informed because most of the students had no clue. Does that really matter if they knew or not? Like, they still did it. Like, A, how do you know that for certain? How do you know that some of them didn't know what they were doing? I think you're just speculating on that, sir. And B, they're adults. These aren't like really young teenagers. These people are adults, young adults, but adults nonetheless. So I just don't get how they can break multiple laws and commit multiple violations, but be like, well, they didn't know, so they shouldn't get in trouble for that. Like, I'll just give them a slap on the wrist, guys. Come on, they didn't know. This is one of many examples of George Bridges, the president of Evergreen, wanting to be as soft as he can be on these students. Like, he doesn't want to take any affirmative action. It's excuse after excuse.
As the new president, I think it is important for me to make clear and reaffirm the college's commitment as a public institution to maintaining a welcoming environment to all students from a variety of races, lifestyles, abilities, socioeconomic backgrounds, faiths, and cultures. I fully believe that institutions of higher learning must provide a safe space for students to explore, discuss, and debate not only academic philosophies, but the harder issues related to living harmoniously and growing together in our communities and as a country. As Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said, the function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character. That is the goal of true education. The character of this institution mandates that we embrace diversity, inclusion, and unity. Racism cannot be fought with more racism.
I mean, there have been Antifa members at Evergreen that have been at the protests, and there's videos of them pepper spraying people.
We have people dressed up in all black hiding in the bushes. Can't make this stuff up. Let's make this as peaceful as possible. Keep the yelling down to a minimum, the name calling down to a minimum, and hopefully we can shake hands and have a conversation. The conversation would be nice. All right, we'll see you guys here. I tried to go up, shake hands, talk to them. They didn't have it. They threw a can at me, hit me right in the face. Not one person shook my hand, not one. I just want to have a conversation. I come over here, I walk all the way over here. I talk to a couple of guys. All they do, they can't even talk. One guy had a little bit of conversation. They called me a fascist, called me a racist, the same stuff you hear over and over and over again. Okay, and then someone reached over and just pepper sprayed me. That's it, man, that's all they got. I'm asking that we have a conversation. We get better. All this hatred we don't need anymore. They act like they're against hate. There's no way. If they're against hate, then they would have take my hand and shake it like a man.
George Bridges has stated, "We've seen a slight decline in enrollment since protests." Nah, why would you say that? Does it have also nothing to do with your state representative openly stating he wants to pull funding from Evergreen?
Representative Matt Manueller plans now to introduce a bill to pull $24 million of state funding from Evergreen. He says the school doesn't deserve public funding because of this and previous student disruptions.
This is like a parent looking at a spoiled brat having a temper tantrum and appeasing that child. I mean, these students need to be educated on what it means to live in a tolerant society where you're open to ideas.
Now, Professor Weinstein says that he disagrees with Manueller's proposal to defund the school, but he is calling for the president of the college to resign because of how they have handled this situation.
And I do kind of agree with Weinstein because pulling funding from the school will also affect students who have no part in this, who just want to go there and get a decent education and not really give a fuck. But at the same time, transfer. I do agree that the president of Evergreen should resign as well, seeing as how nothing is being accomplished and nothing is being resolved with him being here. In fact, it seems like he's one of the problems. Here are a few clips of the Senate hearing for Evergreen, and honestly, there are some great things to point out here.
That comment invited a response. So is it a funding issue you don't have rifles, or it's some sort of a philosophical reason you don't have it?
It's philosophical.
Does it concern you, though, that if you had an active shooter, that might be a necessary, and I don't know law enforcement and the importance of having rifles, but I'm just
It concerns me greatly. We should have rifles, in my opinion.
Oh, okay. So whose decision was it not to have rifles? It wasn't you. It wasn't your department.
It's not me.
Do you know whose decision that was?
The college administration.
Can I ask President Bridges something?
Please.
You want to respond to that, President?
Well, there's been this issue has been with Evergreen for many years. I'm here, this is my 19th month, I think. We're looking at that issue, and there are many needs that our police services units has. Certainly they are seeking this.
So you mentioned earlier you don't have any deep experience in law enforcement.
No, sir.
And so you would want to defer to those who have that experience, whose main job it is to keep the campus safe, wouldn't you?
We are in conversation about that very issue.
Okay, and you got a chief right next to you who just said publicly you need to have rifles, particularly after shooters. Seems to me you've got your answer at what you need to do.
I heard her, sir.
So the president of Evergreen is not taking the advice from these people whose job it is to handle this type of stuff? Okay.
I'd like to talk to an incident that we haven't heard about that happened in January when Chief Brown was being sworn in as the police chief. She had invited some friends and family, as well as faculty, to attend watching her be sworn in. And when the time came for the actual ceremony, several students, I think there's probably 20 or 30 students there, decided that they were going to get up in front and take over the entire event with noisemakers and drums and horns and the PA. and they actually went and took one of the microphones out of, I believe it was a vice president's hand, just jerked it out of her hand. And they basically, they were cursing, saying all kinds of things. It just went on and on. There was complete chaos. It got to the point where after about 15 minutes where President Bridges decided that the ceremony wasn't going to happen. I personally watched some of these students go up to Chief Brown's right up to her face and call her, all kinds of names, cursing at her, as well as she had her young children with her who were fearful of what's going on. So the decision was made by the president that the ceremony wasn't going to go on, and we all cleared the area and let the students basically take over and have whatever they wanted. So the students pretty much ran the show, is how I feel. I just felt that needed to get brought out because I personally witnessed that on that day.
Senator Oban.
So are you aware of any discipline taken against those students?
I am not.
Do you think you would know if discipline had been taken?
I think that if some discipline had happened later on, I wouldn't know. I personally think that at the time it would have been appropriate for some immediate expulsions.
I think most of us up here would agree with that.
Once again, President is preventing people from doing the jobs they are paid to do, that they are there to do. I'm sensing something here, like, I'm pretty sure there's a good reason why people want you to step down as president of Evergreen. You seem to be a big problem in this situation.
Back to the earlier point, though, about the disruption of the ceremony. What do you believe was the disciplinary action taken? Let's talk about the most serious action taken, to your knowledge.
I believe there was a number of quarters on probation with restraints that if the student engaged in more conduct, they would be subject to a more severe discipline.
So I'm sorry, does that mean they were on probation? No, they were not suspended. There was no action taken other than just to put them on probation?
My understanding is that was what the action was. I have no influence on the outcome of that decision. It is a very lengthy process, and the process entails a series of reviews and appeals, and then that was the outcome of the sanction. I'd have to look at more detail. Be happy to get you the information I have. What's the body that that processes a complaint like that and comes up with a discipline? There is a process guided by an assistant attorney general that participates in this. So we have a conduct hearing board, and then we have a separate appeal board, and it is comprised of students, faculty, and staff. Okay. Did you agree with the ultimate result? No. What would you have done if you had been able to make that? Let me qualify that. The process is the process that follows. So what I have in terms of my opinion really, I understand, can't be invoked. But you are the president of the institution, so I'm wondering if you agreed with the result. Well, given the process was followed appropriately, yeah, I do. But if I were the sanctioning agent, which I'm not, I probably would have imposed a more severe sanction. Okay, thank you. You bet.
Yeah, I think the evidence is pretty clear. Moving on. This article is from hotair.com, and they wrote, Bridges said they've seen a slight decline in enrollment since the campus incidents erupted in May, but not at the levels of other colleges in the country that have experienced students' unrest in recent years. No one has told me they are not coming back because of that, Bridges said. We don't know how to draw a comparison. Still, Bridges said college officials will be contacting would-be students. On Monday, staff and volunteers began calling about 1,200 students who were admitted and haven't enrolled in classes yet. I just don't understand, though. You're the president of Evergreen. I don't understand, how long is it going to take for you guys to get back in gear? Yeah, maybe you guys need someone who's going to take some affirmative action right now. Look, I understand things have a process. I understand things take time, but I don't understand how you can have someone in charge who's willing to give in to threats and demands from people who have no authority to do anything, that you're not at liberty to appease. You are the final authority at that college, not them. So that's why I'm kind of at a loss right now. The final thing I wanted to talk about was the video about the Board of Trustees and their conference concerning Evergreen. There are 2 points in particular I want to play. Both are very important. Let's just give it a little watch, shall we?
My biggest concerns with directly what's been happening in this past spring are the lack of viewpoint diversity, and which is one of my biggest concerns, that if you have any sort of offer any sort of alternative viewpoint, which I do have, and you're kind of the enemy. I don't agree with the behavior that has been shown on the campus, and unlike what Anne Fischel has said, I think it is important to focus on the way this was handled. I totally understand that people are upset, but I don't think this was handled in the right way at all. And this behavior has actually been encouraged. And because of this, I feel like people are becoming more violent, and the campus is becoming more of an unsafe place. I have been to several meetings to speak. I've been told several times that I'm not allowed to speak because I'm white. This school seems to focus so much on race that is actually becoming more racist in a different sort of way. And because I say that, because I choose not to focus on race, I have actually been labeled a racist and a white supremacist. And if anyone took the time to actually know me, it's not true at all. But that's what I've been labeled as. Another issue I have is with the social contract, which people read when they choose to come here, and they agree to it by coming here. There have been so many violations to the social contract in the events that have happened, and it has been completely disregarded, and instead of actually doing something about the fact that it's been violated, we're changing it. And it's a small group working on this with only one viewpoint and not getting alternative viewpoints to help out with revising the social contract.
See, this clip right here is very important because we don't hear a lot of opinions from the students who didn't want to participate in this whole thing, who are now dragged into it because the college is inept. Shouldn't everyone be able to give their opinion? Like, isn't that the whole fucking point, is that everyone is able to have a say, to have their voice heard? Like, imagine just being a random student enrolled in Evergreen. Imagine going there to do your classes and you have to deal with protesters and random posses of people trying to harass you. All while attending a school that does nothing about it. Whatever, I'm gonna stop rambling right now because you get the idea, and she's made the point already. Now, in the next clip, the speaker, ironically enough, is Brett Weinstein.
Believe that you are all well-intentioned and that you have the best interests of the institution at heart. And the problem is that knowing that about you, and knowing what I do about what's taken place here, I'm forced to conclude that you must not fully understand what has happened, because if you did fully understand what has happened, you would be forced to act in the interest of Evergreen. So in that light, I want to just simply pose some questions to you about things that I think you need to know that perhaps you don't. Do you know that the college descended into literal anarchy, and that for days the campus was not under the control of the state? It was under the control of protesters, that there were assaults, there were batteries, there was pressure not to report crimes to the police. People were, by the legal definition, I believe, kidnapped and imprisoned. That included faculty members and administrators. Others were hunted on the campus. That lawless bands roamed the campus unimpeded. Police were physically and intentionally blocked by protesters. Police were cruelly, systematically, and personally taunted. They were humiliated and forced to stand down by the president. Students that held different opinions were, by the protesters' own analysis, stalked, harassed, and doxxed, meaning that their names, pictures, and addresses and phone numbers were distributed online. Do you know that concessions made under intimidation and threat during the protest are now being enacted by the college? That includes mandatory bias training for all faculty. This has come about by an agreement between the faculty union, the administration, and protesters. It was not discussed with the faculty. The student code of conduct is now being revised in response to demands by those in violation of that very code. Do you know that although the code of conduct is supposed to protect all of us, that Dr. Bridges decided to selectively suspend it, giving some students license to threaten others based on their participation in the protest?
I mean, honestly, there you go. He just goes through the list of bullshit that these students have perpetrated on the school, and once again, none have been properly punished, nor will be anytime soon. And that's one of the main reasons people are hating on Evergreen, because There's compromising with people, and then there's being their bitch. And when push came to shove, Evergreen became the bitch and continues to be the bitch. The people who have been the ones to make decisions, like George Bridges, should be ashamed of themselves because they're pushing an idea, they're pushing a stereotype that all white people are racist, which is bullshit. I don't care who you are, that's simply false. Any race of person can be a fucking racist. I wish that fact of life would just hit these people already, seriously, because I'm sick of having to say it over and over again. But there you have it. As far as I know, that's what's been happening with Evergreen and Jesus. It just keeps going down and down. It's crazy. I don't understand how or why this college remains to be a thing. Nothing is being done about it. The fact that nobody's doing anything about it is kind of astonishing to me. And what is actually happening is a joke. But I think I'll end it at that. But what's your thoughts on Evergreen? Please let me know in the comments. Thanks to everyone so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. And as always, I'll see all of you guys in my next video.